On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast, Elon Musk teases a massive upgrade for the Supercharger network. Model 3 still seems to be proceeding on schedule. Tesla's latest major software update is imminent, and more. Happy New Year, friends. Welcome to the first episode of 2017 for Ride the Lightning, the Tesla Motors unofficial podcast. Yes, it's January 1st, New Year's Day, 2017, episode number 74. My name is Ryan McCaffrey. Thank you for joining me for another year of Ride the Lightning. It should be the most exciting year yet. Of course, it's my third calendar year doing this podcast, second full year. It was great to complete a full calendar year last year. I'm very proud to say did not miss a week. Thankfully, illness didn't keep me away. I was able to never quite lose my voice or get sick enough where I had to skip an episode, and managed to work around vacations and work trips and such. So very proud of staying with such a regular schedule last week, hoping to do the same this year. There is a little more to get to this week than I expected. You know, I contemplated, should I skip this week, take the week off, but didn't want to lose the momentum. I feel good about doing the show every week. So let's get to it. I wanted to start by, of course, wishing everybody a Happy New Year, and hopefully it's going to be a 2017 filled with Model 3s for all of us. I also wanted to congratulate my young cousin Sean, who I mentioned, it would have been, I guess, 2 shows ago now. He is fresh out of college, and he's got himself a business degree, and he's looking to start a career at Tesla. He wants to eventually end up out here in California. He lives in New Jersey now, where he grew up. Well, he actually got that product specialist job that he had put in for it at one of the New Jersey stores. So I want to just congratulate my cousin Sean. If any of you folks happen to stop, I'm actually not sure which Jersey store he works in, but if you happen to be in one of the New Jersey Tesla stores and see a very nice young man named Sean, be sure to say hello. I also wanted to start the year by thanking, more of a year-end thing here. I'm recording in 2016. It's not 2017 yet as I record. I wanted to thank up front here. I usually do this at the end of the show. Just wanted to thank up front the Patreon producers, the very kind folks who support my weekly efforts with a $20 or higher pledge on the Ride the Lightning Patreon, which is patreon.com/Tesla podcast. Just a huge thanks, first to the newest Patreon producer, Lisa Kaz. Thank you so much, Lisa. And as usual, in fact, I'm going to go the other way this time. David Kittle, Alexi Heft, Michael Lucas, Scott Gillis, John Waltauer, Jonathan Wales, Nick Hoffman, David Brander, ZL Klein, George Cassiopo, Wolfgang Obergen, Pete White, DJ Harbaugh, Paul Hussey, and Jeff Bartram. Thank you all so much for your continued support. And also to Abstract Ocean, the kind folks over there who have been providing a coupon code for listeners of this show, which is super cool of them to do so. Again, if you're a Tesla owner looking for some cool Tesla accessories, if you're not yet an owner like me but want to grab some cool Tesla stuff, be it a lanyard or something, they've got some neat stuff over there. Head over to abstractocean.com and use the coupon code RTLPodcast at checkout to get 20% off of your order. Now, on with the rest of the show, which is the Tesla news for the week. I want to start with a correction from last week, courtesy of our friend Joe Willett in Michigan. I was talking about dog mode in response to a question. Joe writes in, even with dog mode enabled, your climate controls will still turn off after a half hour of the car sitting idle. The difference is that the climate control will kick on automatically if the car is sitting unattended and the interior temperature rises above 105. So dog mode's not the same as camper mode. Joe says he tested this on his own car and verified that the air conditioner does still turn off after 30 minutes with the dog mode, or as I call it, the dog mode enabled. So thank you, Joe, for that. And then one other little follow-up too. Remember 2 episodes ago, episode 72, where listener Doug Harper noted the presence of green as one of the paint color options on the new inventory page of the Tesla site. Well, on that episode, I predicted that it would either be deleted and we'd never hear from it again, be deleted and then announced very soon as a quote-unquote new color, reintroduced color, or just be left there and still get the announcement of green coming back. Well, we do have a little bit of an update here. Again, I'm couching this up front. This might be a total non-story, but that green option is now gone from that new inventory page that Doug Harper had pointed out. So that means it's either going to be reintroduced soon, maybe alongside the 100D, the non-performance 100D battery, which we know should be fairly imminent based on what Elon had said when the P100D came out. Could that also come alongside the HUD? If in fact we're getting a HUD on the Model 3, it's almost certainly going to be introduced on the S and X first. Could that happen in Q1? Maybe Q1 is going to bring 100D, green paint's coming back with a HUD option. We'll see. So that's an option. Or it is, in fact, just gone for good, and listing green on that page was a total mistake. So I'm going to give it until the end of Q1, until it's decided either way. So great job again by Doug Harper for catching that. That is a Ride the Lightning exclusive, folks. Or, as I said, a Ride the Lightning total non-story, one of those two. Also want to congratulate Doug, by the way, who wrote in. Doug purchasing a Tesla Model S 90D, and he used Michael from Millbray's referral code. So thank you so much for that. In fact, we maxed out. I want to thank everybody in the audience just who listened, and then obviously the 10 people who used the code. We got all 10 referral codes used for Michael of Michael from Millbray. So that's all the prizes for Joe. He's going to take me with him to the VIP factory tour with the Q&A with Franz at the end, as well as the next major Tesla event that 10th referral gets you access to. So thanks everybody there, and Doug, enjoy that new Model S 90D. That is fantastic. Here now is the biggest news of the week, I think, and it is courtesy of Electrek's Fred Lambert, who does fantastic work over at Electrek. He's just constantly out there breaking Tesla news, clarifying Tesla news, constructively and politely counteracting FUD. The guy does a great job on that site. And he happened to catch Elon Musk in a tweeting mood. And Elon answered a tweet from Electrek's Fred Lambert. Fred tweeting, asking Elon, any update on the plan to install solar arrays at supercharging stations? Because if you remember, back at the beginning, if you've been following Tesla for a while, well, the beginning of Model S, let's say, the beginning of the Supercharger station rollout, the original plan said that all of the superchargers would be solar powered. They'd have solar canopies, and they would all be effectively off the grid. So that was going to be the plan. And there are a couple, but they're really, it's just not a widespread thing at all yet. And Elon actually wrote back and said, there are some installed already, but full rollout really needs Supercharger version 3 and Power Pack version 2 plus Solar City pieces now in place. So that in and of itself is interesting, as Fred also found, because he replied to Elon's reply saying, Supercharger V3? Now I'm curious, what power output are we talking about? 350 kilowatt? Because that 350 is in response to a sort of coalition of other automakers who've come together and said, we want to put a sort of corridor of high speed of 350 kilowatt superchargers out there to really help spur on electric vehicle usage, which is great. And so Elon replies, a mere 350 kilowatt? What are you referring to? A child's toy? So that is quite the response from Elon Musk. Typically, you catch Elon in the right mood, and you can kind of, it's sort of a playfulness, a little bit of an ego, in a sort of the good kind of ego where he's working on something incredible, and this is his cool way of, his fun way of teasing it a little bit. So for context, if you're thinking, well, what's 350 mean? What are the superchargers now? what does all this mean? The Superchargers now can refill your nearly empty Tesla battery by about 150 miles in about 20 minutes via the current connection. The current Superchargers are 145 kilowatts. So you're talking about well more than double. 350 would be well more than double that. And Elon appears to be talking about something well above and beyond that. I mean, I think it's safe to infer that when he compares 350 kilowatts to a children's toy, that he's got something that's not just 360 or 380, but probably something substantially more. So, I think it's fair to say Elon is probably talking about something that's at least three times the current 145. Because that's probably the low end of what Elon Musk is talking about here. So in 1 year's time, might the Superchargers start getting upgraded to be able to fully recharge an entire Tesla pack in 10 minutes? I mean, is that with what he's talking about now? There's still going to be the taper effect. The lower your state of charge when you hook up to a supercharger, the faster it fills and then it tapers off. That's just sort of the way that's the way the battery chemistry works. But if this could, maybe not even necessarily the whole battery, but even if it does that 150 miles in 5 minutes, 10 times, compared to the 20 now, I mean, you're at the point, if you can get down, especially to 5 minutes, that is getting down into gas refill land. And that's also one way that Tesla could alleviate the problem of too many cars at the Superchargers, which struck this past holiday week. In fact, maybe some of you in the audience, especially California folks, may have felt this, may have experienced this firsthand at the Barstow connection. There were the Barstow Supercharger, pardon me. There were pictures online of significant lines of cars waiting to supercharge, which, that takes a great thing that Tesla has, that's a competitive advantage, and makes it look bad to the average car buyer, the average person. A free charger, but I have to wait. That's not good. That's bad PR for Tesla. But if you're talking about hundreds of thousands of Model 3s on the way in the next 2 years, 2017, 2018, in addition to tens of thousands, if not over the next couple of years, over 100,000 plus more Model X's and Model S's as well, they certainly need to get on the ball with expanding the Superchargers themselves, rolling out more stations, adding stalls, which they plan to do. If you take a look at Tesla's site, at the Supercharger section of the site, you can see the 2016 map and the projected 2017 map, and you can see the growth that is planned. But this kind of upgrade to a supercharger could really help, even if there is a line of cars, could move everybody through quickly. I mean, if you only had to wait, if it's 5 minutes to roll in, get 150 to 200 miles, and then you're out, you can't really beat that. That's pretty impressive. And also, along with the Model 3 itself, that kind of supercharger upgrade could be one of the final nails in the coffin for ICEs, for internal combustion engine vehicles, in the sense of items that are in the con column of pros and cons of whether or not you should buy an electric vehicle. The charge time is still very much one in the con list for EVs as a whole. It's certainly less of a factor with Teslas because of the supercharger network. But I'll tell you, I expect, like the superchargers themselves, that the upgrades would probably start on the coasts and move inward. That's how I'm guessing Elon and the team will do this. But that is purely speculation on my part. I just want to say one more time, kudos to Fred Lambert from Electrek for getting this info out of Elon. Smart question, and you caught him at the right time, because you have to get both. You can ask him a smart question, but if you don't catch him online, he'll never see it if you don't catch him at the right moment. So you got to have a smart question and catch Elon at the right time. And Fred did just that. So kudos to him. Next up this week, one more Model 3 update. It's, again, it's not much, but again, it is good news, or at least encouraging news. This comes via Electrek. Analyst Jennifer Liang of KGI, a respected Chinese firm, did a supply chain check and found that Tesla is going, quote, all out to race the Model 3 to production. In a new note, Liang wrote, quote, versus supply chain management for Model S and X, where nearly all parts and components are shipped to Tesla's Fremont factory in California for sub-assembly and final assembly, Tesla has brought in 2 system integrators located in Thailand and China for various sub-assembly for Model 3. Its recent acquisition of Groman Engineering, a specialist in automated manufacturing, is clearly another endeavor by Tesla to accelerate Model 3 production, end quote. I don't want to repeat myself too much from last week on this, but again, this is good news. It's an indication that, yet another indication I might add, that everything remains on track for now. I'm going to put the asterisk there. For now, everything remains on track. Last week I went over the sort of hurdles that are yet to come and how they could trip over and stumble over any one of those hurdles, causing a delay. They're going to have to leap them all cleanly in order to get the car out on time, which is much easier said than done. But I did want to add a little insider tip I received this week to this story. And I have to add up front that even my source, who is well placed, told me to take this with a grain of salt. So if there are any Electrek or Teslarati folks listening, there's no need to write this up, because it is again, rumor at best, and it's BS at worst. But the Model 3 rumors, I was told, are that the biggest battery option will in fact give the car a range in excess of 300 miles. So whether that's 301, 303, 310, 320, I'm not sure, but that was what my source passed along. Now, the other rumor, which is a lot more interesting in the sense of the variables and the scenarios it could create, and the one that I'm not sure if I want to be true or not, because the 300-mile rumor, I mean, I've talked about that. I think it will happen. I want it to happen. That is what I want to buy. But the other rumor is, again, just a rumor, that the simplest cars will be made first. And what that is in reference to is rear-wheel drive cars. We know that the base Model 3s will be rear-wheel drive cars, and the dual motor will be an option. But this rumor, this tip is that the rear-wheel drive cars may come first off the line because they're simpler to build than a dual motor car. There are pluses and minuses each way if that proves to be true. I have a hard time seeing the first people in line, which, yes, are going to be Tesla employees, but I'm talking sort of the first layman people in line, such as myself. I camped out over in Blaine for my reservation. I can't imagine. I'm sure plenty of those people that did camp out want the $35,000 kind of base level car. Some of us, such as myself, want to check all the boxes if we can. I just can't imagine the first cars coming off the line not even having the option of ludicrous, of the performance model, because unless they plan to have 2 variants of performance, which at the same time, meaning a rear-wheel drive let's call it a P80 for just say 80. We're saying 80 kilowatt just as an example for the big battery on the car. A P80 and a P80D, so a rear-wheel drive performance car and an all-wheel drive performance car. I wonder if Tesla could go that route, but it's interesting. So if they start with, because Elon has previously said, remember, Elon had said after the reveal that the higher spec cars would be made first. So that's where I'm inclined to think that this rumor is BS. But if there's a rear-wheel drive only, if there's just a P80, that could still sort of qualify under Elon's statement. And maybe just the big battery rear-wheel drive cars, the performance rear-wheel drive cars, if that's the way they're going to go and have two performance variants, that could be the case. Now, whether or not I end up getting the performance model and I don't know whether I'll be able to afford it yet, but I've talked to my wife. I'm definitely aiming to at least get the biggest battery dual motor car. So that would have the highest range, that all-wheel drive traction, and hopefully pretty good performance as well. So if that were the case, and that meant that even though I camped out overnight in Palo Alto for my spot in line, that I'd have to wait a few months for my car because I wanted a dual motor car. I'm torn on that because of course, the plus side is that it gives me more time to save up, number one, to have a bigger down payment and thus maybe be able to get myself the performance model. So there's that. And if it moves me back in the line a little bit and I end up with a higher VIN number, higher meaning produce later, an actual physically higher VIN number, it wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world for those early cars to help shake the bugs out before they get to assembling mine. So there's that. But the downside, of course, is I have to wait longer to get this car that I've been dying for, especially as others who maybe, waited, who reserved after me get theirs. And, there's the downside, of course, as well and this probably applies to many of you, not just me. My trade-in car, the car I'm going to be selling, which actually I'm sitting in right now, it's turning 11 this month in January. That car will further depreciate. I mean, maybe not in a tangible way for an extra 2 or 3 month wait, but it also enhances the likelihood that, what if something else comes up on it? What if the transmission needs to be done? What if it needs tires? Because this car, everybody's situation is different, right? So there are pluses and minuses either way. I'm rambling a bit too long on this. Point being, again, even my source was very careful to say this could be BS. They might have been yanking my chain on this, but this is what he heard. So take it, huge grain of salt, but just some food for thought. Because you know what? What else are we going to do for the next 2 or 3 months until that Model 3 Part 3 reveal event? All right, the last news story this week is a very brief one, and it is simply this, that next week, or actually this week as everybody hears this, investors and analysts will be getting Gigafactory tours next week to let the Wall Street folks and the investors get a look at the progress at the Gigafactory as it continues to grow and expand and ramp up into production. Elon Musk and J.B. Straubel are expected to be there for a Q&A. So hopefully someone will record it and put it on the internet so that I can pick out the good clips and bring them to you next week. I'm not particularly optimistic about that, but either way, I'm reasonably certain that we will get some good quotes out of Elon because I've covered Elon long enough to know that Elon can't not give some sort of juicy quote or two at these things. It's just, he's such an honest guy. Like, he'll just answer any question that he's asked to the best of his ability. He's gotten a little better in recent months at just shooting down things that he's not supposed to talk about yet, but odds are we'll get something fun out of Elon, out of this investor and analyst Gigafactory tour this week. So stay tuned for that. And finally, just one final little tidbit to tack onto the end of the show here. This may be irrelevant by the time you listen to this, but we have no 8.1 software for the cars out just yet because there's a big Tesla app update and then a bunch of stuff in the cars. Of course, this is the big one for all of you new Tesla owners with Hardware 2. This is where your autopilot is going to come back online, some of your other safety features. So this is a big one for a lot of people. It is not out yet. Elon had tweeted earlier, this last week, I guess, by the time or earlier this week, depending when you are listening. He had tweeted on the 29th, almost there, undergoing final validation, might go out in the next few days. And in fact, just prior to me recording this, it might even in fact be out now. Elon had said they caught one bug, and if it gets fixed, that it will be rolling out before you even hear this. So it might, in fact, be heading out. So if there are things of note, as I'm sure there will be, I'll check through the release notes. We can talk about that on next week's show. But if you are a Tesla owner, be on the lookout for your car for that big update. I got to know, Tesla owners, does it feel good? Is it like a little present, like a little gift to yourself? That you were, well, not to yourself, but is it like a little birthday present that you get to open at various points of the year when you get in your car in the morning and it's like new update and it tells you a bunch of sometimes interesting new things that the car can do? I got to figure that would just be awesome. Maybe you wake up one morning, you got to go to work, maybe the weather's crap, and you're like, oh man, it's Monday, I don't want to do this. And then you get in your Tesla to go to work and it's like, oh, new features added. Software downloaded last night. Now your car can do this better map thing and this better whatever, this autopilot enhancement. That's got to brighten your day, right? That's got to feel good. I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. That's going to be a really cool part of Model 3 ownership once my time comes. All right. I've talked long enough. Let me take a quick break, come back. I've got a few good calls here in the Ride the Lightning hotline. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 of them this week. So we'll do those right after this. Time for the Ride the Lightning hotline. First one of 2017. 4 excellent calls lined up. And of course, if you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, give me a call. It's toll-free. You can call, you can Skype. The toll-free number is 1-888-989-8752. That's 1-888-989-TESLA, T-S-L-A. And I can tell that it was a holiday week. I did not get a ton of calls, but I got a good handful of good ones. Not quite the usual volume, but that's okay. I fully expected that. People are traveling during the holidays. It's perfectly expected. And we're in good. That's the good news. We're in good shape. We've got enough folks who did kindly call in. We will start with Michael from Millbrae right after I remind you that, of course, lifeonrecord.com kindly provides the Ride the Lightning hotline. If you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. Michael from Millbrae, I asked last week as sort of a buffer against a potentially slow news week, which it kind of wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be. I asked you guys, what will the Model 3 mean to you when you get yours, hopefully in 2017? And Michael from Millbrae, who has he has a Model X, but he's ordered a Model 3 to replace his other car. Michael called in to answer that very question for him. So let's hear from Michael.
To me, Model 3 means I don't have to get an early morning flight to LA for work. I can just hop in the car, go to sleep, wake up when I get there. No security lines, no hassle, just easy travel wherever I want.
I am so glad you brought this up, Michael, because I was, in fact, coincidentally thinking about this exact thing recently. Because it's the holidays. Normally, we go to Arizona to visit my parents because the holidays are a great time to go. The weather's good. They know they know we will not visit in the summertime. It's just too hot. I lived through 15 Arizona summers, and that was enough for me. They love it. God bless them. But they know that, the holidays are when we tend to visit. This year, we had visited for a family function in October, so we just didn't have the money to, it's like $1,000 for the three of us, my wife, my daughter, and I to fly down there. It's it's funny. Gas prices have been down for couple years now, But have the airlines passed along that fuel savings? No. No, they have not. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, so yeah, we weren't able to make it down to Arizona for the holidays this year. But it got me thinking, well, next year, if I get my Model 3 in time for the holidays, maybe we'll drive down. Or maybe I'll drive and have my family fly and meet me, and then we'd have my car there the whole time, and then I could drive back. And I was thinking, well, man, San Francisco to the Phoenix area is already a tough drive. Like I've done it a million times back when I was, divorced, when it was just me and Maggie the boxer. She'd sit in the front seat, and that dog's so good in the car. But we would do it. But it's even cutting across the 210, which is like bypassing LA, sort of taking, through Pasadena instead of down right into Los Angeles. It's a good 10.5 to 11.5 hour drive, no matter when you leave, or more if it goes worse, if you get traffic. But so, even with Supercharger stops, it's going to take longer because, again, it's, we're not there yet. Until Supercharger V3 rolls out, it's still a situation where, you're looking at 20 to 30 minutes per Supercharger stop and going to have to make a few of them. And I thought, man, that's a long, long day in a Tesla. But Michael from Millbrae notes so accurately here that when the software in the Teslas gets to the point, the autonomy software gets to the point where you can actually legally and safely sleep in your car as it drives itself, combined with the RoboSnake charger that was prototyped like 2 years ago, so that you don't have to manually do anything at the supercharging stations. The car just will pull itself in, the cable plugs itself in, unplugs itself, and then the car moves on gets on its way again. When that happens, it is going to fundamentally change interstate travel. And it's going to make it better than a gas car. Better. Not just on par or close enough, but better, because, that's not to say that I'm sure there will be gas-powered cars that can self-drive, but, Tesla is clearly the horse. They're the leader around the bend here at the horse race on this. I know. I was just trying to find a horse racing term. I follow sports, but not horse racing. And I was like, oh man, I can't think of whatever the proper horse racing term is right now for whatever the lead horse is around the first corner. Anyway, yeah. So it's, if you can sleep in your car, you could actually just go overnight. You could leave overnight. You could leave at like 9 o'clock. You could be awake for the first 2-3 hours, and then you could conk out and just sleep. And then by the time morning rolls around, you're there. It's all good. You're there at like 9 the next morning, at least for San Francisco to Arizona, just using my own example. And I will say, when I thought about this, I was thinking about, for me anyway, there'd be a psychological barrier to get over as well, because we've all spent our entire driving lives being conditioned to not fall asleep at the wheel under any circumstances. That's like the worst thing you could possibly do, because you're going to get in an accident, you're going to get hurt, or you're going to get killed. Never fall asleep at the wheel. So I'm going to have to, when that day comes where my Tesla can drive me and I can sleep in it as it drives itself, I'm going to have to somehow convince my brain that it's okay to do that. That I have to let go of that fear and anxiety. But I suppose I could always get around that psychological barrier by just going in the passenger seat or in the back seat and sleeping there, where it's more sort of, maybe I wouldn't quite have that psychological block from being able to fall asleep in the car. But thank you for that, Michael. That's an excellent call. You brought up a great point there. I want to go now to Mark DePietro from Wisconsin calling in again. He gives his thoughts on what the Model 3 means to him. So Mark, take it away.
Hey Ryan, Mark DePietro from Wisconsin checking in again. Regarding your question, what the Model 3 means to me, I mentioned in my last message that I'm after a car that is safe, that has all-wheel drive, but more importantly, that's just something fun to drive, something cool. And Tesla reminds me a lot of Apple back when the iPhone came out and the new iPhone came out and all that stuff. It just shook up the industry. It was exciting. The quality was awesome, and it really challenged the industry and made other companies try that much harder to compete, which was awesome. For me, the other big thing is the sustainability. Having a future where you can pair this with the Powerwall, with the power shingles, to power your home, to power your car. That's just incredible. I didn't quite know if that would happen during my lifetime, but that's going to be a huge deal. It's just a full package. The Model 3 is something a lot of people will be able to afford. The fact that you can drive a luxury car and maybe reduce your energy and gas bills is going to be really something interesting that is going to challenge the automotive industry. So that's what it means to me. Thanks.
I think the Apple comparison is, in fact, a valid one, Mark. I mean, obviously, it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's not everything that Apple has done, Tesla is doing. But the fact is, Tesla gets the kind of press and buzz that Apple did back in the early iPhone days, and still gets to a large extent. And Tesla gets it by making products that are so cool that people just want them because they're so cool. Not because they're green or sustainable or anything else, but just because they're cool. So it's going to be interesting to see that. This led me to another sort of side thought. It's going to be interesting to see who rises up to be the android to Tesla's Apple in the electric car world and in the automotive space. Will it be Google? Will it be Apple themselves, who've reportedly tabled their electric car project? Will it be Faraday Future, who's got a lot riding on their CES unveil this week? Will it be Lucid, who did just unveil their car to some very positive initial impressions? Or is it going to be someone that we don't even know about yet? But it's going to happen. There will be that sort of android to Tesla's Apple. And that'll be a good thing. That's what Elon wants. And that's what's good for all of us. It'll drive Tesla to make better products, and it'll just drive the world forward to have better cars, better electric vehicles, safer cars. It'll be great. So we shall see. Richard from Ottawa calls in, and he is so excited about the Model 3, about what the Model 3 means to him, that it's in a half, not even a Mount Rushmore of cars for Richard, but a half a Mount Rushmore. So Richard, you're on the air.
Hi, Ryan. It's Richard from Ottawa, Canada. I'm 71 years old, and of all the cars that I have purchased in my life, I've only been excited about two of them. My brand new 1967 Mustang when I was 20 years old, and my new Model 3. I love technology, and I can't wait to drive my new computer on wheels. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Richard, that is high praise. If Model 3 is in your top two most excited about cars ever, and by your own admission, at your age, you've probably been driving for 50 plus years. So right there with the 67 Stang that you got new, that is awesome. I sincerely hope that the Model 3 delivers on everything you want it to. And really everything for all of us. I wish that for all of us. So Richard, thank you for that call. And I guess I pose the question, and I guess, I've talked about this in bits and pieces on this podcast, but I guess I should answer my own question of what the Model 3 means to me. I mean, I've been lucky enough to sort of be in the Tesla orbit for a while now, largely thanks to my cousin Pat in Arizona, who, when I visit once or twice a year, always lets me drive his car. He usually says, "Oh, you want to take my car tomorrow?" And I always take him up on it. So I've been lucky to spend a lot of time behind the wheel of Model S's and a little bit in a Model X, but without actually owning it. But I think the Model 3 for me, I think I've mentioned this before, but for me, it's, I want to start taking regular Sunday drives like a lot of Americans used to love to do, and I'm sure plenty of people still do, but that's what I want to take it out and go somewhere cool every weekend, just during the day, because, you know, it's the show is done it's out on Sunday morning. So Sunday is my free day. And I want my 5-year-old to see more of the Bay Area, because the Bay Area is a beautiful place. I'm very fortunate to live here. You know, you've got Napa Valley right over the Golden Gate Bridge, just an hour to the north. You've got Lake Tahoe within shot, which I've actually never been to Lake Tahoe because my Infiniti is a front wheel drive car with 19-inch low profile, you know, the nicest tires and wheels that Infiniti offered. It's not fit for that. And my wife has a Mini, and that's not really fit for snow duty either. So, you know, I'd love to go to Lake Tahoe. Of course, that's a little more than a day trip, but, you know, we've got, of course, there's the Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1, which is just beautiful. You could drive down to Santa Cruz and the beach boardwalk. There's Monterey, there's Pebble Beach. There's a thing, I hope I get the number right. I believe it's called the 17-mile drive. It's supposed to be like a twisty cliffside, like super awesome classic drive. I'd love to do that. There's just a million, Highway 84 is great if you're ever in the Bay Area. It's sort of halfway between San Francisco and San Jose, and it goes between 280, which is a main artery, and then the other side of 84 is Highway 1, is the coast. And it's like, again, cool kind of twisty roads, huge like redwoods and like literal farmland just in the middle of the Bay Area where you wouldn't expect it. So there's just all sorts of cool places I'd love to do and the reason I don't do it now is because, number one, it's a gas-powered car, and, you know, I'm not the most green person on the planet. I try to do my part a little bit here and there and not be too wasteful. But yeah, you know, I don't want to necessarily be pumping all that excess CO2 into the air, you know, week in and week out. Plus, you know, at this point, the Model 3 is my goal. I don't want to just be pouring tons of miles onto my Infiniti, lowering the resale value, and potentially something happens. I know I'll be taking the same risk in the Model 3 if, you know, what if a deer jumps out or something like that. But, you know, at this point, I feel that my best strategy is, you know, plus this car gets like 16, 17 miles per gallon. It'll do like 20, 21 freeway, but this car does not get good gas mileage. We have some of the highest gas prices in the country. This car only takes premium. So there is a bit of a cost factor involved. And again, the wear and tear, I don't want to have to replace tires again, because I think it's probably going to be close as it is on the tires. Because, you know, the tires on this thing aren't cheap. I just mentioned they're the low profile 19. So it's just, yeah, I would rather try to minimize the sort of wear and tear on this car because my goal is that Model 3. But once I get that Model 3 and it's zero emissions and there's so few moving parts that I can just drive it and not really worry about anything other than the tires, then yes, I want to start doing that. So for me, the Model 3 is going to, I really feel I want it. I plan for it to really, in fact, open up my world a bit more and open up some new experiences for me. And I get, take my family out, or maybe just my daughter if my wife's busy, and maybe she'll grow up remembering, hey, remember all those fun drives my dad used to take me on when I was a kid. And when he finally got his Tesla that he always talked about, and then we just took it out and went to cool places all the time. Like, I'd love for that to be a great memory for her when she's older. And the fact of the matter is, this is a car that for me, as I've said, if you are a listener since episode 1, where I gave you kind of my Tesla origin story, I said I've been a Tesla fan since 2009 when I encountered the Roadster. And I knew, I quickly found Elon's secret master plan. And so I knew right away, like, okay, this third generation car that was as yet unnamed, that's going to be my next car. Like, that'll be it, because that's going to be the one. And so I've been waiting for Model 3 as I know many of you have. I've been waiting for Model 3. As of now, it's been 7 years. It's going to be 8 or 8 plus by the time I actually get it. And, this is kind of I almost feel like it'll be kind of a midlife crisis car for me. I'll be at least 37 when I take delivery of it. It'll be, and it'll only be my second new car ever. This Infinity's my one and only new car. I told you, I had the DeLorean for 12 years. Of course, that car is as old as I am, so I didn't own it new. And then there was just my very first car, which was a hand-me-down from my grandfather. And, it went from, so that, the Model 3 will mean a lot to me. And I don't think I'm, like, hyping myself up too much, because, believe me, I work in the video game space, and it's very easy for video game fans to kind of work themselves up, and I'm just as guilty of this. I mean, it's a thing. You get this idea in your head of what an exciting video game is going to be, and usually video games are announced way in advance, so you have months and months and sometimes years to think about, what's it going to be like to play that game? And then when you get it, the reality is often not quite as good as what you'd pictured. The biggest victim of that, the most high-profile victim of that, in fact, some of you may be familiar with this game, No Man's Sky it's a case study in that from 2016. But I don't think the Model 3 is going to be that. I really believe, having spent a pretty good amount of time with the Model S here and there, and a little bit with the X, even a little bit with the Roadster back in the day, I really am confident that the Model 3 is going to. I know this is going to sound a little like hyperbole, but I really do think that the Model 3 is going to change my life for the better. Not in any sort of night and day way, like suddenly everything's, everything is incredible and nothing, everything's perfect. Like, no, not like that. But I really do think it's going to have a positive net effect on my life, and I can't wait for that. Let's do one last call, not on this topic. It comes to us from Daniel in Nebraska, who takes note of supercharging, the Supercharger map on Tesla's site, which I actually mentioned a few minutes ago. And he raises, again, this is why I love the phone calls and I love the participation from you kind folks that listen to this podcast, because you bring up great points that I haven't considered. And Daniel has exactly one of those. Daniel, take it away.
Hey, Ryan, it's Daniel from Nebraska again. Just listened to the most recent show and figured I'd give you some content just in case it's a slow week. I just want to say thank you to everyone at Tesla who updated the Supercharger map that 2016 was coming to a close, and didn't look like they were going to hit their target, but the target for 2017 is really looking good, and if they can hit that by the time they roll out Model 3, I think they'll be in a much better place. Another thing was, I don't really know how Tesla handles or plans to handle when they're more towards the level 4 or 5 autonomous with the horn. I was curious, like, if you have someone coming over into your lane and there's someone behind you or you can't really brake or speed up, does autopilot handle that right now, or I figure it'd have to eventually? I guess if we ever get to the point where the cars can just talk to each other, say, hey, don't come into my lane. But yeah, I was just curious how, if, or when they plan on handling that. Thanks. Merry Christmas, or whatever holiday the other listeners are celebrating, or happy Saturday if they don't. Thanks. Bye.
Well, Daniel, I have to say that I never thought about that. I'm fairly certain, very confident now. One of my owner listeners can check in and verify, but I'm fairly certain that autopilot as it is now, which is level 2 autonomous, doesn't do anything with the horn, not by itself. Because on autopilot now, it's the driver's supposed to be in control at all times. But again, you make an excellent point. Because as you note, two, quote unquote, smart cars, so potentially two Model 3s, could just talk to each other if one of them's doing something dumb without the need for a horn. But if the smart car detects, let's say your Model 3, detects a quote unquote dumb car, such as the Infinity that I am sitting in now, doing something that it's not supposed to be doing, i.e. the driver is, maybe he's talked about falling asleep at the wheel earlier. Maybe the driver is starting to nod off and is starting to drift over into your lane on the interstate or something. Will the smart car be able to honk its horn on its own to alert the other driver that, hey, my sensors detect you're getting a little too close to me on this 2-lane road and you're not supposed to do that? Or would the smart car, would your Model 3 simply brake and kind of try to get away, evade the person that is drawing closer to you? Now, in some cases, that might not work. There might be a car behind you. You might not be able to do that. So that is a great question of, will level 4 and level 5 autonomy in Tesla vehicles be able to operate the horn when necessary? Will it have the intelligence to know when to do that? So that is just I love that question. My guess would be, this would be a great question for Elon if you could ever catch him on Twitter, as Fred from Electrek did. I mentioned at the top. I doubt there will be any horn functionality with the autonomous driving at first. But my suspicion would be that fleet learning could enable it. Could enable that sort of added layer of autonomous behavior eventually. That enough fleet learning of the cars always know where they're supposed to be on the road and where the other cars are supposed to be, so that if the fleet learning reaches a point where it's there, and then a car within sensor range of your Tesla starts to do something that from fleet learning the car knows is not supposed to be happening, it would actually honk the horn on its own. So I love that question. Daniel from Nebraska, thank you so much for sending that in. That is a great, thought-provoking question. And that wraps it up for the Ride the Lightning hotline this week. Great stuff from you guys. Keep your calls coming. Hopefully you're all sort of back in the saddle this week, back in your regular routines. I would love to get some more phone calls. We'll get whatever you want to talk about, questions, comments, discussion topics. Maybe it's going to be something that Elon talks about with the investors and analysts at the Gigafactory thing this week, or whatever you want to talk about. Let's talk about it. Give me a call, toll free, 1-888-989-8752, or you can just record a question right into your smartphone and email that voice memo file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Be right back to wrap things up for you right after this. Well, I already mentioned a few folks that I normally thank at this part of the show at the beginning, just as a way to sort of put a bow on 2016, say thank you to some people, and kick off 17 with a little gratitude, which I think is always important. So just a couple things to mention. You can follow me on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. Again, the show email address, if you want to email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com. If you're a video gamer, you can catch me 9 to 5. My day job is at IGN.com. We are the world's #1 video game website, but we also cover all kinds of sort of fun geek culture stuff, movies, TV, comics, etc. Subscribe to Dave T's weekly Tesla newsletter at teslaweekly.com. He delivers a nice summary of the week's Tesla news in email newsletter format every Friday. Gene and Electric Jen and all the crew at teslarati.com, thank you guys so much for your ongoing support of this podcast. I do sincerely appreciate it. It's always good to check in with Gene from time to time, say hello, see how he's doing. And I think that about wraps it up. I mentioned the Patreon at the top. We maxed out Michael from Milbray's referral code. So we'll see if there's going to be a new referral program. It's starting it would start in the middle of the month, so we'll just keep an eye out for that one. And most of you probably already subscribe to this podcast. That's the easiest way to get it, the most convenient way for you to get it. But if you don't, you can subscribe any number of ways, either on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, or pick up the RSS feed on the podcast hosting page, which is teslapodcast.libsyn, LIBSYN.com. So happy New Year, everybody. Happy electric motoring, and here's to an awesome, killer, just fantastic, so much fun 2017, where hopefully a lot of us get Teslas this year. So until next week, friends.